Welcome back, everybody, to The Last Look. I've been joined again, this time by two guests, one returning, two more you guys don't know. Go ahead, we're going to start off with you, Brother Gemini. Go ahead and say what's up to the people.
Hey everybody, this is Gemini D Block on The Last Look with The Last Pollard. I'm so happy to be back, and let's get into it.
Yes, and I have two more guests. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
So I'm Lindsay Pollard, and glad to be here on The Last Look with The Last Pollard.
And I'm Ronald Pollard. Same thing. Glad to be here. Share this space with Gemini and with The Last Pollard.
So today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be going over the movie Leave the World Behind. Now, it's a very interesting movie. If you didn't see it, go ahead and check it out on Netflix. Does anybody know who produced this movie?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The Obamas were the executive producers.
The Obamas made this movie.
Michelle and Barack were the executive producers.
Does anyone else?
Barack and Michelle.
Does anyone else find that interesting, given the times we're going through? It's 2023. We're fighting two proxy wars. We're over in Ukraine and Israel, and now they drop this movie, and conspiracies at an all-time high ever since they cloned Tyrone. So I'm going to start off the review with the guests. You guys can start. Do you think that do you find anything offsetting about them producing this kind of movie at this time?
I think that they were foretelling in a certain way, not so obvious way, but I think it's almost a foretelling of what's to come. So I think that it does feed into all the conspiracy theories and all of that kind of stuff, because I think that there is truth to it. I don't think it's all conspiracy theory. I think that there's a lot of truth to it. So that's what I got from it.
And I think that when you think about because Julia Roberts also directed and produced, but executive produced with Barack and Michelle Obama. And when you think about the role they have played in the world over the last 12 to 15 years, and the influence they've carried, as you think about it, those are some very insightful and very, not very subtle, but intentional foretellings, as you mentioned, because who knows more about what's going on in the world than they do? Really, who knows more than those two individuals Trump knows a lot too. He's just crazy, but Trump knows a lot. And I'm sure he's getting briefings from Biden and Kamala Harris and all of them. So, yeah, I can see what you all are saying. I can see that.
Right. All right, Gemini, what do you think?
Well, I am a conspiracy theorist at heart. Hollywood, which is propaganda. If we understand media as it is, media is propaganda. I think it's something that's very telling that Hollywood gets to tell us the stories and to prepare us for these things. It makes these fantastical ideas more realistic so that when they actually do occur, we're able to stomach them. We're able to deal with them. In fact, I would say we should even be on the lookout for alien movies to come out soon. Anything that they want the masses to kind of be open to accepting, they're going to put it into media so that it doesn't sound so foreign and so fantastical.
When I hear that, I think about how they've been putting out alien movies, Avengers, all this stuff. They've been watering down the occult, watering down aliens, Olympus Has Fallen, U.S. Has Fallen, all these things, all these movies of the United States getting taken over, losing the modern way of living, Civil War. But we're going to get into it, y'all. We're going to go to the question. So, man, when this movie starts, how do we start this movie? We're going to go with Gemini first. How does this movie start off? And because you're our resident cinematographer, let me know with these angles and stuff what you notice as we go along.
Absolutely. Well, let's see. The first thing I noticed is it was very, I want to say grainy it did show, it did give us a overview, a wide-angle view of the city. So it gave us an idea, gives us an idea where we are. It was a little confusing, to be honest, at the beginning, because it did not express the modernity of what we currently live in right away. So I was a little confused about the time period until I saw the first cell phone, the first gadget. When I saw the first gadget in the shot, then I understood, okay, we are a little more modern. But originally, I was actually a little confused on the time period that we were starting in. I thought maybe it was a flashback to the 90s or before then.
I thought that this was going to be a funny movie. At least that's what I thought about the beginning, because she's like, I miss people. And then I remembered, I effing hate them. I was just like, ha, ha, ha. Then the movie was nothing like that the rest of the time. I was like, oh, okay. So we move on. How do you guys feel about the beginning of the film, showing the family getting up, the wife, the husband? What do you guys think about the dynamic that you're introduced to between the wife and the husband?
So I'm going to leave the beginning part to my husband, but the dynamics between the husband and the wife pissed me off. It did. Oh, it pissed me off because it was like she was just running everything and he was so wimpy. And when in America have you ever seen a white man be wimpy and a white woman be, I got the engine, you know what I'm saying? I'm running things. That may be what they want in their mind or what they fantasize in their mind, but as of yet, you've never seen a white female president, which I think as long as white men are alive, you will never see that. So just for them to even go with this whole power to women and women feminism, it was really irritating to watch how flimsy this dude was as the man of the home. Like he was just, it was like, okay, like I watch Gunsmoke like almost every night, okay? I love that show. To me, it was like he was acting like the women were portrayed back then. What did we do? The lights went out. Oh my gosh. I was like, does this dude have balls or what? So anyway, that was irritating to me. Very irritating.
And I know I'm supposed to address another part, but I will say this. What I find ironic about this, help me say this the right way. This reminded me of Obama's administration.
Break that down.
Catering to women, emasculating men, and had an agenda for LGBTQI, HRBD,
Go into that. Where was that agenda at? Where'd you see that in the movie?
Well, I'm just saying the way she addressed the husband and the way the husband allowed her to address him reminded me of the kind of emphasis that we saw with the Obama administration.
Like modern relationship dynamics rather than traditional.
The emasculation of maleness. That's what occurred to me, having reflected on it. And I was like, that kind of reminded me of some of his.
All you needed the husband to do was start dancing like this, like Obama was doing on. Basically. That's all you needed.
And because not at one point did we see the husband. Well, maybe we did, but I don't remember clearly seeing the husband mail up.
No.
I don't remember seeing him mail up.
And he had a bad sense of direction. Let's point that out real quick. They made him non-traditional man in every way, even to the point at some point during the film he says, I'm a useless man. They actually have that in the lines. I'm a useless man.
So here's the question. How are you married and still a metrosexual?
Well, one of the things that, was kind of glossed over is his professorship.
Yes.
So in academia, he's actually making a lot of money in that way. So he's able to still fulfill the provider aspect of his role in the marriage, yet the power, like you said, is being held by the woman, by the wife in that marriage. And with the way, as you were saying, the way the agendas have been pushed, this is something that we're now seeing as an expectation, is that the man should now go out and he should still bust his hump in whatever way possible to bring home as much to and hand over his check to that woman. And yet he should still, by using a professorship, it takes away what we would consider the masculinity of that man.
May I speak to that, Gemini?
Absolutely.
What I was going to say is, just because he provided money does not mean he provided leadership. That's what I saw. He provided money, he provided access and a way for money, but he didn't provide house bandness, banding, bringing his house together and leading his house. That's what I saw.
And there was another aspect of it that undercut his professorship.
Oh yeah.
Was the girl, the Black girl, who asked him, does he screw his students or whatever? So that was another undercut
of his authority.
And his professionalism as a professor. So there was a stereotype attached to that.
I want to interject only because before we get too into that, we have to back up, y'all, because y'all getting too into the meat of it. And it's great. Yeah. We want this. But what we have to ask first, and I'm going to lead on this one. When them two families met, so Mahershala Ali and that young lady, who played his daughter, and what's the female lead actress's name again?
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts and her husband. When they meet them, it was the classic, like the film does a very good job of making you not trust the Black people either. You're like, huh? They ain't been able to text in a day. A boat has come ashore. They've noticed these weird events happening around town, but they're ignoring it because they're like, their cell phone signal hasn't worked. I'd be panicking as soon as my cell phone signal had been out for more than 4 hours. More than an hour. If I can't text or do anything with the internet, I will be like, yo, something's up immediately. Maybe that's what the movie's trying to get across. But let me know how you guys felt about the initial meeting between the two families. We're going to start with Gemini. Go ahead.
I was so upset. I was hot. And in general, I understand Julia Roberts is a good actress. She was such a good actress that all the previous experience I had of her, I hate this woman. This woman is terrible. I just really did not like her.
She did her job then.
You got her Karen bag, boy. She was Karen to a T.
Oh my goodness, she did. And then, and like you say, the way things were cut, the pacing, it did make it very, very hard to believe that this was their home. But I don't know, maybe it was something still inside of me. I want to believe in us. But and I was like, why are you? What convinced me that it was his home was when he opened the drawer and left the gun. When he opened the drawer and left the gun there, that's his home. And he knows that, and they should, and it was just, I had to get over myself to keep watching at that point.
And what was also interesting, the tension that they created was because he left his wallet or lost his wallet somewhere. So he couldn't prove his identity, but he could prove that he knew the house well enough to go find stuff. I thought that was very...
They even played with that because when he's doing the keys, he said, oh. And I was like, is he innocent or not? Like this dude. But like Gemini said, when he left the block,
the gun,
I was like, oh.
I think another thing that caused tension, or the way that they because they could have created more tension with the music, the soundtrack, but what created tension also was the angles of the camera. So I thought that was just genius, the way that they did that.
And their use of color.
Their use of color,
man.
Yeah.
So we saw that color change, the blue, the warmth, the green, the angles, as you said. And man, that was, the use of shadows was incredible. The way they used shadows was absolutely stunning.
But I also think that, again, going back to the mix-up in roles, expectations, I should say that, Julia Roberts, Gemini, she was so ferocious and so defensive and so distrusting, and the husband was like, doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo, let him in, doo-doo-doo. And that part made me upset as well. It was not just her being a Karen, it was his lackadaisical, oh yeah, well, let him in. It's things are going bad outside. It's nighttime. Like, he believed everything they said, and really it would have been the reverse. It should have been the reverse.
I think I agree with you on that. However, I think there's a different sense that men have with danger as well. And how can I put it? The threat that you would feel from a stranger and someone who presents with a confidence of, this is my house, I understand this situation is a little awkward. I think his willingness to accept that says something about how men also interact with each other. And so her extra paranoia was definitely telling, because it did demonstrate how we see things and we react differently when it comes down to male and female interactions, and understanding the safety precautions or safety measures that would need to be had in dealing with a stranger. I agree with a lot of the things that you guys were saying as far as the camera angles and the color changes, and it was just that initial face-to-face meeting that I think is again, I think that clearly illustrates the difference of where we stand as men and as women when we come into interacting with each other, especially in a tense situation.
What also got my attention, Gemini, well stated, sir. What also got my attention was how late he was to every party. He didn't catch on to stuff until after the girl said, look at that boat. And then she went to the mama. And then the dad. I'm like, dude, this dude is oblivious. This dude, I mean, he was late to it seemed like he was late to every major thing. That is what I'm also talking about as far as the implied emasculation and lack of leadership with this man.
So now let me ask you guys this. They did something in a movie you don't often see, and I'm going to point it out in this way, I'm going to frame it. Mahershala's father character and his daughter, they had a dynamic where I was surprised by how obedient she was, even though she was an adult. Because usually there's a lot more defiance when they show Black men and women in family. And I was very surprised by how obedient she was. I'm not saying she was always kind or tactful with how she chose to be with the other family, even though they were in their house. I just want to know, what were your guys' thoughts on their dynamic?
I think that they had a good dynamic. I think they were both worried about the mom. So it made you think that they had a pretty cohesive family relationship. And then with him not telling her certain things to like not worry her, that reaffirmed it for me that they had a pretty good relationship all the way around. With her being obedient, I think that probably came with, and this is just me assuming, that probably came with the maturity, you know, of the age that she was. Maybe if she would have been like a teenager or somebody younger, you may not have had that dynamic. But because she was older, you know, there was more maturity there, more understanding. And then, you know, going back to when they first appeared at the house, I mean, she had her arms like this, like, what the boo boo you doing up in my house, like, and acting like this, and we're here for help, but this is our house. So there was maturity there as far as claiming this is ours, you know. So her body language told it all. But as far as your initial question, it just came across as if they had a pretty solid family, although there was some mystery behind if they were really telling the truth, like you said at the beginning.
For me, she was more aggressive than her daddy, but she was subservient to the daddy. Because when he put his foot down or raised his voice and handled his, when he mailed up, the daughter backed off. Even though she was free to express herself, she still knew her boundaries. Because when he decided to step up and say, I forgot what her name was, he said, look, Ruth. And she backed down. She backed down, you see, because I think what I saw in that was generation now and generation previous. The way this generation expresses and deals with some stuff, but still being obedient and respectful to her daddy. Because he said, I hear you. He gave her room to talk, but then he said, no further. I'm done. This is what we're gonna do. And then she backed off, but he did let her express herself, but she did it within that context. So I was cool with that. I saw that.
Go ahead, Gemini.
I actually, back to the dispersions that they were casting on who they were. It was actually something that when I saw the relationship at first, there was the subservient role that I saw, but it made me question whether or not he was like the mastermind and she was one of the team players in the con that they were going to be running. So that was also one of the things. And I think it was, and I do understand that they wanted to talk about the loss, and that was a point to drive the story with the mother not being there. But there was another example, again, of an incomplete black family. And that was what bothered me, as well as was a concern, because there was this, again, you had this incomplete black family. You have this complete white family. And if we go a little farther on into the story, there's a time where you see the black man and the white woman together, and you're like, I don't want to see this. I don't want this to happen. This should not happen.
And vice versa. You see it the other way. I thought the daughter was trying to get her cookies ate. I was like, I don't like this movie anymore. I was watching like, no, please, not again.
Right. But that was implied.
But yeah, definitely. When the daughter was dealing with the husband, it was also implied that there was some sexual tension there, and I didn't like that either. There, again, when we talk about, we understand that because this was a film that was produced and went through the lines that it went through, there are going to be agendas in there that they're going to push, and they're going to push them very subtly, so that we don't quite understand what they're doing. We see it and we absorb it, but we don't understand the impact of it. and we don't understand the impact of actually not seeing. We got to see him express his love for his wife, but we didn't get to see him express it to her. We didn't get to see it. We didn't get to see them relate to each other. And that is something that is sorely missed just in all of the media where they show Black men and women and Black love. We're not seeing us do those things together with each other.
One point I'd like to make is that what you said was so powerful, Gemini. We got to see again an incomplete Black family. What we also saw was a broken white family. The Black people were incomplete because the wife was missing. The white family was broken because of the role problem in power and in normality. So you had those things paralleling each other at the same time.
Bring that up. I want you to go into what you saw with the children of the white family. Now down to the kids. Let's examine the kids.
The girl was lost in technology. She didn't have a healthy relationship in talking with her father and mother. Her solace was technology. Her therapy was watching Friends, the old TV show Friends. The boy, I didn't hone on him as much, only because the girl, to me, she was just off the charts to me in terms of out of control, needing therapy, and out of sync.
I mean, I thought that they portrayed the boy as, a hormonal boy. Okay. He's taking the booty pictures of the girl and while she's in her bikini and all that kind of stuff. But what made me sad though was I didn't feel like there was a true connection between the two children. In the sense that he was like goading her or teasing her, but I also felt like she was in search of some form of a relationship or connection with that whole family that she wasn't getting. And so her only friend was that show and technology, whereas the age of this child, she should have had a bunch of friends. You know what I'm saying? And even though she had been cut off, she didn't mention one friend. She didn't mention a best friend. She mentioned technology.
There was something I did notice in that relationship between the two children as well that kind of put me off. As a big brother, as an older brother, there's a time when your younger sibling comes to you and they're worried, and you see it, and you embrace them. You bring them closer and let them, it's all right. Even if it's something that, for instance, I have younger brothers, even if it's something that I know they're going to have to go through, the tough love aspect of it that he seemed to show her was definitely unnecessary. It wasn't natural for a big brother to a big sister as much as it would have been a big brother to a little brother.
Great point.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed. There was definitely a disconnect there.
So then I would attribute that to the girl had problems. She had Gen Z problems in a sense. I think the young boy was portrayed far more normally in that he had problems connecting to women. But that's normal at his teenage age. He's still figuring that out. He's just becoming more socially aware. The white kids were treated as children and innocent, needing to be protected. And Karen did not see the Black girl nearly the same. She was always about protecting her children from the environment. But then when it came time talking about where their mom had possibly been and the planes, she had no chill on just talking about planes crashing. And they know that George's wife, the girl's mom, was on a flight last they saw her. So I noticed in this movie they were showing how the race relations are poor, the trust between different groups in the United States is poor, the way Karens view black and white children is very different. They had all the tropes, from the insensitive comments about the hair to treating her like she's always trying to be smarter. It was like Karen was like the racist white dude who's like, oh, you think you're smarter than me? That was her entire attitude towards the black girl. Like, she was threatened by her, challenged by her intellectually the whole movie. And it just showed like she was, I don't know if she was jealous. I don't know what the deal was, but she showed great distrust towards the black man. And that sexual tension, I think, was there because her husband wasn't nearly as useful as George was. George was coming with new information, the husband getting lost. The daughter's asking really good questions and rebutting the white woman, telling her, or the Julia lady telling her to think about it this way, or maybe this isn't the answer. And she's getting mad and yelling and shutting down all. She's like terrorizing everyone. She's yelling at her husband. She's ignoring, she's just putting her kids away, like, just go have fun. And she's mean to everyone around her in different ways. So I think it was just interesting. I'd like you guys to touch on that. Did you guys see the difference in treatment of her versus her children and then the black young lady? Go ahead, starting with Gemini.
I thought it was very interesting to see who the quote-unquote hero of the film was. Because initially she is, the Julia Roberts character is touted as the protagonist in the film. However, she definitely antagonizes everyone in it. She is not, but again, I think it's kind of tongue-in-cheek to display what we already know is happening with the various agendas, the feminist agenda, the putting white women into these power positions where they should be, they're the ones who are seeing things better, they're making the better decisions, yet still in all, you can't foster a peace in the home, in a home at that, let alone in the country. And if you're going to be the leaders of this nation, then are you going to lead us into war? Are you going to lead us into distrust? Are you going to lead us into a lack of empathy for everyone around you? And ultimately be in a place where you are in danger because those around you don't trust or like you. That was interesting. And then to see, ultimately, as we know, Heru, the hero, we actually stood up to be who we are, and we showed to be who we are. So I did get to appreciate that. It was definitely telling, though, to see how the energies bounced off of that character who, if we look at economics and we look at the distribution of people throughout the country, technically we live in a country that should be predominantly white women. That would be the largest demographic in the country if we just go by the numbers. And in that we saw that she did not she didn't work well with the group. And then the one other image of white women we had actually isolated herself from the group and then hoarded all of whatever resources she had to herself. Now, we don't know if ultimately she ends up getting back with the family and telling them, oh yeah, I found this place and they've got all of this stuff here. We actually didn't get to see that happen. But that's what we saw. Those are the images that we got to see, and that in itself was telling.
I like what you said, Gemini, about the mother showing that she was like in control. And I just want to add another spin to it. There was a lack of empathy. There was a lack of sympathy, which was incongruent with her role. So her role as a mother, as a nurturer, as a supporter for her husband, she held that title, but she disconnected from all the emotions that went with that title, from the children to everybody. And so I think when we see the little girl go off so that she can get back into technology and feel some sense of normalcy, I think that she's modeled that to these children to have this lack of emotional connection with everybody else, because this child went off. This child went off. No buy cat, rat, dog. She went off to go, like we would say, she went away to go find her warm fuzzy, you know? So to me, it was very powerful for Julia Roberts' character to have all this responsibility, and yet there was a complete disconnect emotionally.
And she's supposed to be the nurturer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like Ruth had to slap her into reality when Ruth said to her, "What about my mother?
Mm-hmm.
What about my mother dying? Our concerns."
Mm-hmm.
And you saw that Julia Roberts' character was caught up into her first world entitlement issues. And that's what she was caught up into. But Ruth slapped her into some cold, hard, real world. My mother could be dead. My mother could have been on that plane and dead. And so that lack of empathy and all of that had to be contrasted with what Ruth was saying. And I thought it was powerful that Ruth, and here's the thing that is a stereotype that we've had to overcome for years. Black passion does not equal a lack of intellect. That has been, because Ruth was as intellectually tuned in, she was as present as anybody of all of those characters. She was on point with everything, and yet she was passionate about what she said, felt, or thought. And so for me, it showed, Ruth is a very intellectual person with all of this passion, because all of her senses are on point. It's just that the way she may have said it, or expressed it, or walked might have bothered some people, but she was every bit engaged and took it to another level.
It made her look attitudinal. That's the way that they made her look.
Yeah.
Although what you're saying is so on point.
Yeah, she was still intellectual with all of that.
So going into her reaction, that's what I'm going to ask you two first. How do you think you'd respond if you were? I'm going to flip it. We're going to answer the questions from both the Black family's perspective, the white family's perspective. We're going to start from the white family's perspective. If you rented out a house, and forget the color of whoever owns the house, and your cell phones start going off, you're in the same situation, are you going to let these people into the Airbnb? And how are you going to approach them or react to them showing up at the door? You can't verify none. The same thing as them. What do you think you would do? Go ahead.
In real world, no, you're going to have to show me some ID. You're going to have to prove you are who you say you are. Because you're not coming up in my house that I paid for. That ain't happening. You got to, I don't see that. No. That's why we know
I think we both would be.
That's why we know that's a movie.
I think we both would be like that.
Because the aggression would pop out of both of us.
Yeah.
I'd probably have to hold her back a little bit so I can handle some things, and then she can get what's left. But no,
Especially if my children are in the
And
house.
especially if
I
my
can
kids in the
understand
house.
that.
Especially if my dog that I like is in the house. No, that's not
Go
even.
ahead, Gemini. What do you think? If
you're
you're in the white family position and your family's in the house, are you allowing people? How long are you listening to them before you tell them, "Nah, you're not coming in, dog. I don't care about your story."
All right, I may be a little different. I'm going to hear you out. I am going to give you every opportunity to prove to me you are who you say you are. Now, for instance, I lost my wallet. I lost my your registration's in the car. I know it's in the car because you got especially in that part of the country. That's where I'm from. I'm from Jersey, so yeah, your registration's in the car. Let's get that. You know, I got a minute.
They didn't
It's not
drive
raining.
up. So if they don't have the car, how are you going to verify their ID if they don't have the car? Because we never. That's the only thing. We never see them drive up. They had to have walked or ran to their house.
No, the car was there. The car was in the house outside.
The car was there because remember when he and the white guy drove to the neighbor's house?
Okay, I
And
missed
remember, in the beginning, Julia Roberts was like, "Did you hear something?"
Mhm.
And then the doorbell ended up ringing. So yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear a sound. Okay, so even when that happened, I was like, she's tweaking. And then the doorbell rang, and I was like, well, I don't know what she heard, but all I ever heard was the doorbell. So I was like, she got spider senses. Like,
Right. No,
See-
the car was there. I'd have given him every chance, and then I don't want to say I wouldn't have allowed him to step in. I probably wouldn't have allowed him to step in the house. Not until we did the whole thing with the registration, and then, hey, look, I got keys for this, that, and the other. In fact, if he would have took out a key and did that on the front door, I'd be like, okay, you know something. There's something to look into. I have dealt with life differently because of how I show up. I'm 6'3", 300 and something pounds. When I open the door, people are gonna do like this anyway. So, all right,
Mhm.
we got our space. Let's talk. And I'm willing, you know, unless I see something, I'm not really scared of much.
now
If it's got to go down, it's got to go down.
Can I just say one thing? Just to piggyback off of Gemini. So for me, I make a paper trail of everything. So when we went down and we did an Airbnb in Destin, I had my paperwork.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Now I know this is the movie, but I'm just saying for me, I have my paperwork. So if my license goes kablooey or whatever, and you come up, you know, I'm coming up to your house or you coming up to my house, I've got your paperwork right here. I have my paperwork right here to show who's who. That's just me. So I'd be looking at my paperwork because when he's saying, hey, it's George, and she's just like,
It's
huh.
GS, it's GS.
Yeah, she's like, she's still going, like she don't remember.
because
Right, that was a little weird.
George couldn't possibly be a nigga. Like, that's what she was, what? Like, she's seen him, she's like, I've never met a white man named George. Like, what? If you're the black family, what are you doing? It's your house and they ain't believing you. Are you going to introduce yourself or are you running them folk about your house?
I understand the situation. And again, I stand in a different place. I know knocking on somebody's door, even though it's my door, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to get a certain thing. I'm going to get a certain response. So, yeah, I'm going to, where's my wallet? I'm going to have that first. I'm going to, and then if I don't, when I get to the door, I'm like, look, I don't have my wallet. Here's my registration. You may not be able to see my picture on the registration, but it has this address to this house, and this is my name. Now, GH, the way she responded, I would have definitely, I'd have felt some kind of way. What do you mean no, GH, George, the same person who, look, I can tell you your $2,534.26 payment came to me. That moment that I was in the house and they allowed me to get to my drawers and click, Listen, I might have had to pull the thing out. I might have had to pull it out. Y'all gonna chill in my house. Now, either we gonna be cordial and get all, or y'all can all leave. Because you don't got one of these. I do.
I would have pulled a what's that, Captain Ryan or Captain Phillips? I'm like, look at me. I'm the captain now. I would have told them. I'm not gonna lie. Before y'all go, you guys already guessed my answer. It's my house. You gotta leave. The world is ending. I don't know you.
So in the Black family's place, I agree with what's been said. I would have showed proper ID. I would have showed as much as I could. And I might be jumping just a tad bit ahead, so just bear with me. But once they left my house,
Yeah.
they weren't coming back to my house to get in my bed.
Deuces. And then I'm gonna go to the basement.
What? And they went straight back to the basement and let the people stay in the main. I mean, that to me was just like, okay, like, what are you thinking?
Now that
was a dumb move. I'm
I
sorry.
let somebody come in, right, or someone else come to the door, and they're on the metal floors, and I'm on the bottom floor. Is that not somewhat of a meat shield?
If I have, more than likely, I've prepared the basement to be a place where we can hunker down.
Hunker down.
So yeah, I'm gonna take the basement because I can still get access to everything else I need to get to through the basement. They don't know my house like I know my house.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, go ahead, stay there, do your thing. We will clean up if we have to later.
Now I do agree with them. I do agree with them that when Ruth pointed that out, we're back in the basement. I was like, why are you back in the basement?
Yeah,
I was like, wait,
well,
I understand what they're saying, but my second thought was, well, I'd rather have some meat shields up there, so if people get tired out from fighting them, then I come out from the basement like, let me clean this up. What's the rest of this, or what's the scraps?
I mean, I could see if you had like a screen or something, or you had something where you had the surround cameras at the basement. You know what I'm saying? Or some type of a walkout in the basement, and you had some, hidden closets or something in the basement. But they're not showing all that. They're not showing all that preparedness. Okay, so that's what makes it a little bit more exacerbating that these people, well, we're leaving. We're gonna go do our own thing, and then when they come back, oh, come on, welcome in.
with their tails tucked between their legs.
Yeah.
So here's why I'm thinking why I did about getting them kicked out the house. Because do you guys remember the scene when the white couple was speaking and the husband's like, what's the big deal? And she says, well, what if he goes into Rosie's room? And the husband says, what about our son? And she said, what do you mean? And I was like,
yeah,
he could get assaulted too.
They'd have all been in that shed in the woods if it was up to me. They'd have all been in that shed in the woods if it was up to me. Honestly,
Amen, brother. Amen.
So my question is this, starting with you two, how do you feel about her sense of protection towards her daughter and not her son? And immediately assuming the black man, not even the black woman, because men and women are both capable of sexual assault. What do you think about her immediate thinking of the black man as a predator and her prioritization of her daughter and not her son? Go ahead.
I thought it was typical Karen. I thought it was typical fear-based white woman who, and I thought that they wrote that into the script on purpose.
I heard Hillary Clinton super predators line when she did that.
Okay, yeah, because exactly. See, because these people are, for some reason, perpetually the victim. Somehow, perpetually, I am. If it's not hegemony, it's victimization. If it's not, I know better than you, and I know more than you, and it's all about what I think. It's, oh, big black, oh, gonna kill me. It's always. So when she didn't protect her son, but was emphasizing her daughter, I saw that as typical white Karen. I saw that as about the standard response I have seen with a lot of these people. And I think it goes to her disrespect for her husband and the son. I think it goes to that. I think that's the connection. That disrespect that she had for him that's passed on to the boy now.
Except for when his teeth fell out his head. But go ahead, Gemini. Do you have anything to say about that?
No, don't.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know, like I said, she got to be my least favorite character in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
She definitely was that. The level of disrespect and disregard that was shown towards the men in general is, like I say, it's reflective of what we see from social media and then the current iteration of our political landscape right now. It's just what we're seeing. That's the idea that's being pushed. The idea that men have run the world into the ground, and that only the women are going to be able to save us because they're the only ones who have sense enough to understand what's going on and how to how we should be treating each other. Yet it also demonstrates their lack of understanding of how to treat each other. As useless of a man as the husband was,
Mm-hmm.
he was still the only one that actually was able to stop everybody and bring them back to this calm, quiet place to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was his life on the line and his son was in the car with his teeth falling out of his head.
Danny, that was the neighbor. They were trying to get medicine from
Kevin Bacon.
neighbor Danny.
Right. But it was still the father who was able to, hey, let's stop before we go too far. It was the father that stopped the wife. Hey, calm down, let's stop before we go too far. Like I said, as useless as he was the only one that actually had a sense of, hey, we are in this together. Let's be in this together and let's get through it.
So do you all think that with what Gemini said just now, as far as the father having that sense of calming and bringing everybody together, do you think that him being white and Kevin Bacon being white, do you think that played a huge part in him talking, his whiteness talking Kevin Bacon down from shooting them all?
Yes, because his hostility was bore towards George, really. I think that was the whole premise, is like, see, he's got the American flag shotgun, he's out in the forest, and only another of his kin could really get in his head and be like, you just told me to do everything. And then the white dude played on his ego. George was like, bro, we're friends. George was feeling betrayed. Other dude is totally about the objective of my son. So in that moment, he surpassed him because George wasn't begging. George was like, dude, we've been cool. Can you just give us some meds? And the father, Danny, Kevin Bacon, reacted hostilely towards that. He's like, I don't owe you nothing. I don't care if we're friends or not. Whereas when the white man said, I'm begging you because you did better than me and you have your family prepared for it, and I'm a useless, like, he had to humiliate himself and humble himself to get the medicine. But I do think that is ultimately what got him to, because you saw it, that camera angle where he had the gun and he's looking at him. He's like, you're right, I'm prepared. I guess I do have, like, I should help my brother out real quick. But he told George, that's the old way. So I don't think that without that father being there and looking like him, I don't think he would have given him not a dime, not anything, no type of meds. Even though George was advocating for a white kid, it didn't matter because he could see him and everything. But when the white man came out, he listened.
Yeah.
See that? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Gemini.
Well, I think that was there is definitely something there with that, because George actually represented an equal and if not more powerful force to Danny.
Uh-huh.
Because this was another man in his masculinity with a gun. So they were going to have a stalemate. or somebody was getting shot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was inevitable, wasn't it?
Mhm.
It was inevitable. Mm-hmm.
And I see it as what happens now when, and this might seem like a big leap, but in my mind it's not. The commonality that we see on the streets between police officers and whites that do wrong, you know, there's always this mercy. There's always this exception made, you know, where with us, there's no speaking about it. It's just pow pow. It's done. You know, you ask questions later or you try to clean up later. But there's this commonality that is almost this unconscious decision making, like, oh, well, that could be my brother, or that could be my son, or that could be my nephew. That softens the reasoning. And so that's what I also saw. I love the point that you brought out, Gemini, as far as, you know, George even being more powerful or being a formidable foe for him, but a neighbor, but that didn't even matter. There was this commonality now with this white man that looked like him. You know what I'm saying? So that was just really interesting.
And it's interesting that George always conducted himself with class.
Yes.
He was composed, articulate, and just class. Whereas the other guy, Kevin Bacon's character, the Yahoo, and then the other cat, Metro Milk Toast, you know?
Very casual, very understated, not polished at all.
Since we've covered just about the plot and the dynamics between the characters, we conclude essentially that the wife's plane is probably crashed because George sees not one wreckage, but two, and he survives the second because one is coming down on him as he's visiting a neighbor's house. So we're concluded that the wife she's lost, she's dead, she gone. He found bodies everywhere, planes been crashing. Like, what ends up happening in this movie is that we don't know how many countries did it, but they teamed up supposedly and they knocked out all the internet in the States, all the cyber attacking. Like, they got the US isolated and turning in and cannibalizing itself. How likely do you think that this is to happen to us? And given the timing of this movie, everything that's happening, do you guys think that this is a likely situation? Yes or no? Go ahead and start, Gemini.
We've been hearing about this for actually decades now. We've been hearing about it in movies for decades. And two movies in particular come to mind. The Matrix and The Terminator. One of the things that we saw in the movie was AI actually in control. And that's what both of those movies actually have talked about, is how AI is actually the one that would be in control. And it wouldn't just be an American thing, it would be a worldwide thing. We still never got a clear indication of who was behind it. It could be that there were countries that grouped up and decided to do something. It could very well be that somebody turned the AI on and they forgot to turn it off. And it made the decision that it's time for y'all to go. One of the things that we didn't talk about, and it is actually, to me, was a big character, it's actually a character in the movie, is nature itself. Because even with the technology going bad, one of the things that I paid attention to is they were on Long Island. They were stuck unless they had a boat. Unless there's a boat somewhere that they had access to, and more than likely they would be able to find one on Long Island to have access to a boat. But nature cut them off. as well, because now they're on this island. Then they had to deal with the animals and how the animals were reacting. How likely is this? I can't give a percentage because I actually think but I do think it's very likely. It's very likely that either someone is going to gang up, or someone's going to lose control of something that they think is going to make life easier for everyone. I think there's too much hubris that we currently have with the level of technology that we have, and we are not being honest and truthful with the position that America has taken in the world. In fact, I don't think a lot of us are truthful with American history in general. We don't deal properly with the history of what America has done to its citizens, black, white, or anyone else. So when we think about how we could be perceived by other countries and the level of upset that they would have and wanting to retaliate, we're not. I don't think we're ready for that at all. But so I do think it's kind of likely.
If anybody watches this later, but you have not traveled outside this country to get a perception of what other people think about America, how they see you, how we position ourselves. If you haven't gone, we've been blessed to, as a family, travel to well over 35, 40 countries around this world. We have seen a lot of what people think, how they view our media, our customs, our attitudes. And we really are so immersed in first world luxuries and problems until we would think, oh, it's just a movie. But you understand, man, there are people who are livid with America. You think about the Islamic world. Bruh, that's a whole nother telecast for you to deal with. That's a whole telecast unto itself. Just take the Islamic world versus American ideals or values or whatever. And so when the question is how likely, I could actually see countries coming against America heavily. You have a world where people are asking, who made the United States the big brother for the world? Who anointed you that? Who voted you that? That you are the big brother, the big papa, big dog for every country around the world. So I see it as at some point being very, very possible. But when that is, only God knows the time and season for that.
I found it interesting that outside of the black people, the white girl who had no connection to the family was the only one outside of her world enough. When her world was shut down, she started to pay attention to the larger world at focus. That's why she could notice the deer. She noticed the boat. She was the first one to notice the boat. No one else was paying attention. She's like, that boat's close. Man, that thing rolling up. Oh, we got to start running. She's sitting in the bed like, I'm done waiting. Like, she has no fear or sense of danger. And it's crazy how her disconnectedness led them to their new bunker, or that's what's implied. And at the same time, because they weren't in the city, she was free from danger of wandering by herself. The plot gave her the most luckiest break that she didn't walk in on another family because she's a little girl. And at the end of the world, the very fears the mom was expressing towards George could easily be acted out by anyone else, and she would have never seen Rosie again. But it also came back to demonstrate how the mom, even though she coddled Rosie, how you lose your daughter. You're not.
That's a whole nother thing.
Is what I'm saying. They weren't truly connected to their kids because their kids could go wander off into the forest because you're a racist. Not paying attention. You're so concerned with what the black people are doing that now your kids are almost getting stampeded by deer and stuff. And they're just out there getting bit by bugs. she had to run out the house to search for her kids because of the sound. Like, it took a whole weaponized sound for her to realize, oh wait, my kids that I've been complaining about being in danger are gone.
I just want to say very quickly that I could also see, I receive everything that you stated about this little girl, but because she is so technologically addicted, I think her addiction drove her to do the unexpected. So I think that they also showed another form, and this might be stretching for some people, but I also think that it showed another form of addiction.
Well, because when she got into Thornton's house, the house that had the bunker they needed was the Thorntons. That's where Danny even recommended George and the son and the dad go. So that's how that ties in. So they're all headed there anyway, unknowingly. The first thing she did wasn't technology. The first thing she did was an addictive thing. She started eating chips, Sour Patches, just soda. Like, she go, I was like,
chocolate chip cookies.
And there was chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah.
And there was probably other food there, but that was a kid thing. You know what I'm saying?
She chose to try and match her brother in a single food sitting.
Yeah.
She's trying to lose all her teeth in one food sitting, and immediately after that, you hear the mom, Rosie, and she says, about that, and walked away deeper into an unknown house, went down, she sees a hallway, sees a vaulted door that you made the comment on. You said that could close behind her and lock her in there, and now she's just in there. She would have been okay for a while, but she would have been locked in there like a tuna can. What do y'all think about the disregard for her mother?
That's part of the dysfunction we were talking about earlier.
That's part of the
disconnect we were talking about earlier. Yeah. That's just one more extension of it.
And then she broke into the house. Like,
yeah, you saw the glass. She busted in the glass to get through the door.
So that goes the point towards that addiction thing where you'll do anything. You'll do anything. I'll beg, borrow, steal, rob.
That's right.
Steal,
that's right.
Whatever.
That's right.
Get my fix.
That's right.
You just need a hit of Friends. Just the last episode, just one more.
And she was so confused. She was just like,
let me get a little bit of that DVD.
Right.
I know you got some.
I'll be there for you.
Tyrone Biggums.
Yeah.
I know you got some internet. I know you got some internet or something over there. Let me get some
It was good.
But she was so content, right? Wasn't she so content when she was sitting there like, ooh.
Nothing in the world could reach her, could bother her.
That's right. That's right.
A little blue light came on her face at the end of the movie, and we were all looking at her like, and she's just like, just happy as could be, ignored her mom and everything, had a belly full of cancer and sugar. Thank you guys for joining. We will see you on the next one, and peace out.